See you, sir.
Well, first of all, we'd like to start out tonight by just saying thank you to all of you for coming out. I appreciate taking the time and the interest to really be involved in some of the things that the community and this council has been looking at. And, you know, we all, I'm sure every one of you out there hates when we vote to do another one of these studies, but this really is one of those studies that I really am appreciative of. I think it's really one of those studies. It's one of those studies that we're really looking at trying to bring forward a framework from which to work, and it really creates an opportunity for us to see where we're going to have some of the costs in the future. In the past, really what would happen is something would break at one of our facilities, and we'd have to fix it, not knowing whether it was a good investment or not. And this study here is really going to give us the framework from which to work for the future, to really make good, sound decisions on the economics of how we fund things, and also looking at, do we need to start planning ahead? Are we having big expenditures coming forward on some of our existing buildings that we need to start planning for, as opposed to having something major go on and all of a sudden now we got to come up with an enormous amount of money. So I think this is really a great study for us as a council and as a community to really see what it is that we're going to have to be funding in the future with our facilities. So the BKV group has gone through and they've looked at all these different studies, having different professionals look at all the different structural pieces of our existing facilities and make sure that they're sound, and if they're not, where are the costs going to be for us as a community in the future? What are we going to have to do? And then as a staff and as a council, we need to look at how do we fund those costs. We also have the opportunity to look at, is it time to move on from some of these structures if they are not in repair? Can we fix them? Or can we afford to fix them? Or should it be fiscally more sound to look at another opportunity in a newer building? So I'm really excited about this study. I know that none of us get excited about studies. I get several phone calls every year asking why we had to do another study. But I think this study really gives us the professional point of view on the buildings that we maybe don't have in-house to do. And so the BKV has many different professionals that can really look at the aspects of those buildings that we can't. So I would first of all like to say thank you to them for their hard work. I appreciate their time and effort, and I hope that all of you will enjoy the presentation that they're going to bring for us tonight. This presentation tonight, if you do want to review it again, that is also going to be offered on our website and also on the government channel. We'll be running it occasionally so that everybody that cannot attend tonight might have the opportunity to see it. So if you do want to watch it again, I'm sure it'll be just stunning, right, Bruce? That everybody will want to watch it maybe 2 or 3 times. But I hope by the end of the night, everybody has really a framework to see what we've been looking at as a council and where we might go in the future. You're going to see the existing buildings that we have, but the other piece of it that I think we need to all open our eyes up to the opportunity is really the Blazing Star Landing area. We need to look at, they're going to bring some conceptual ideas forward to us to look at, but looking at the opportunity that the city may have to advance into that area and maybe work with private entities to get that piece of property moving forward. I think we all look at that as a real gem in our community, and I think we all would like to see something happen there. But maybe it has to be a partnership between the community and a private organizations to make that stimulus happen. And so we'll be looking at some of those opportunities more in a conceptual way. I know that sometimes when these things get presented, we automatically jump to that it's going to happen type of deal. But really, this is really an opportunity. Is it an opportunity for us as a community to look at in the future? And so have open eyes when you look at that, and that discussion we'll have down the road. It's not going to happen in the next year or two, but we need to start looking at what it is that as a community we want to have moving forward with that site. And to this point, we have not had developers knocking down at the door. We're not holding that land for any use at this point. So I think it is maybe important that we as a community start looking at, are we going to be a part of the solution in there, and can we be a part of the solution? Those are questions that we'll have to ask. So enjoy the presentation. I think I would like now to introduce Bruce Schwartzman from the BKV group. They've spent last about a year here looking at all our different facilities and going through them, and he'll give you all the real facts. So, Bruce?
Mayor mentioned BKV Group, and we're a firm out of Minneapolis, a 36-year-old firm, and we've got a whole variety of architects, engineers, and whatnot. So we were able to bring expertise on police departments, fire departments, things like that. But we also teamed. You know, part of these studies are bringing the best experience to the table to work with the city. And we have a gentleman here from Matt Wagner from Mead & Hunt. Mead & Hunt specializes in airport planning and has been working with the city of Albert Lea for many years on your airport. So he was part of our team member. We had a gentleman from Texas who specializes in public works planning facilities, and we brought We brought Ron Hilton here as well. We had another gentleman, part of the study was to look at the Emergency Operations Center, and we had another gentleman that we worked with out in New York. So really we brought together this solid team, and as well as part of the study we'll talk about too was looking at operational efficiency of staff. So there's another gentleman that actually had been city administrator with 2 cities, had been county administrator with 2 counties here in Minnesota, and he actually brings this outside view of, are there things that the city could do more efficiently, the staff do more efficiently? So we had, I think, a phenomenal team to help pull this information together. With that, the overall project itself looked at a variety of facilities. The main facilities, now you can see little snippets up here, is the city center itself. We have the bathhouse, fire station, which is part of the city center, the Edgewater Bay Pavilion, Public Works, the municipal airport, as I mentioned earlier, and the city arena and the Blazing Star site, like the mayor mentioned. So those were kind of the facilities that were looked at. The goals and objectives were broken down. So the way we do our studies is the first one is what we consider a facility assessment. You all and the city as a whole has an investment in your existing facilities. And so it's important to understand what's the condition of those buildings. What's the age of the mechanical equipment? What's the condition of the roof, and when's that going to have to be replaced? What's the level of energy efficiency? Is it such old equipment that you could be saving a couple $1,000s a year by going to different systems, or better insulation, better envelopes? Code compliance, does it meet with accessibility requirements? Does it meet with all the various code compliance for fire alarms and other things like that? We looked at that. We brought our engineers down, and we spent 2 to 3 days walking through all the facilities. And then as part of that analysis, which is going to be a full report provided to the city, part of that analysis looks at maintenance cost. So what's the cost to redo that door and that finish? What's the cost to replace that overhead door? All of these things are identified in the report, so the city and the council and all of you have an understanding of, here's our facilities, here's the things that might need to be addressed, really just from a condition standpoint. That gave us an understanding of the buildings. From that, we then went into the operational analysis. And the operational analysis looks at staffing of all the various departments. Is there going to be a change of that staffing? Is the city going to be adding new services they don't currently have? And what's the space that those various individuals need to perform the responsibilities of their duties? The staffing operations that I mentioned, we looked at. Dave Unmach came in, and Dave did an analysis of the employees the city currently has, what their functions and responsibilities are, and how that meshes. Could there be some improvements in that? And then just as a global overview, as we do the study, we look at community service. Is the city and the city services as a whole providing what they need to the community? And again, that's something that's very important to make sure we look at and make sure that's being provided properly. Once we have that information, now we've understood the facilities, we understood potential long-term of staff implications and operational space, now we can start to look at master plan options. Does the facility, the size of the facility, fit for the space that are needed in there? Can it be remodeled? Can an addition be done? So we start to develop a number of options. And again, this is all done not just BKV back at our offices. This has been an interactive process with the city, as the mayor mentioned, for almost a year now. And we go back and forth. This option works, that option doesn't. And this is tremendous opportunity tonight because we want to hear all your thoughts about some of this as well, these various options. And again, one of the main things is this idea of maintaining and utilizing your existing buildings as best as possible, so each of the options looks at that. The next step then goes into implementation. How do you implement this master plan? What makes sense from a timing standpoint? Can things be phased to minimize initial cost? And then financial strategies as well. So we're pulling together those final pieces of the puzzle right now.
I'm Dwayne Jones. I'm with BKV Group as well, working with Bruce side by side on this project for the last several months. I'll just talk a little bit about some of the facility assessment conditions that we worked on to try to identify where we are with the current facilities and the conditions that they're in. One of the facilities, and some of these I should mention, some of these facilities had they obviously all had different needs. Some of the conditions were more operational, and the accommodation of the space that is there operating in the program that's there right now. And some of the facilities had higher needs for the actual physical condition of the building and the site themselves. So we took a look at.
Can you enlarge that writing there? I can't read that.
Sir, I think really what that's going to be is these are just some overview bullets. I believe that the city is going to be making this information available.
I can't read it, you know, why can't I read it?
Well, let me just go through a little bit of, just briefly overall. There is more detail on the screen. However, just let me explain some of the stuff that we looked at in the fire station, for example, in City Center. The fire station right now operates, as most of you may know, out of the lower level of the city center, and most of the conditions of the fire station themselves right now are focused on the operational impact of the space that they're working in right now. There's the exhaust system, for example, right now in the garage does not meet the current code requirement for exhaust within the vehicle bays. There are no accommodations right now. We're seeing a growing trend in the nation here for female firefighters joining the staff, and there are no accommodations at all right now for females. The apparatus bays where the trucks are parked and are made available in case of emergency have very, very small, tight space between them, and making it very difficult to prepare for emergencies and get out and fight the fire. As we were mentioning, the typical emergency response design requirements just fall very short in the facility right now. It's a decent condition of the facility, but mostly operational is the issue in this facility. Public Works was a facility that was originally built as a creamery, and worked real well for so many years, and it was then used for Public Works. Public Works, a lot of the conditions of the facility you maybe can see here. There's a lot of deterioration. A lot of deterioration of the structure itself. There are some structural problems throughout many of the buildings on that site. There's a lot of space that's taken up with the vehicles are stored inside, as many as can be accommodated. It gets to be very crowded in the evening, and some of the finishes, as you can see, are deteriorating and coming very past their useful life. Some of the vehicles have damaged some of the structure as it's been used. Absolutely. Thank you.
So as Dwayne's pointing out, and I hope you don't mind, we're going to do a little tag team with some of this too. But you know, really, one of the biggest things, the city's got a tremendous investment in Public Works is about equipment and about the materials they deal with and the people to go out and do your store and your water and the types of street work that they all do. And so really one of the biggest things we found is the condition of the old building, which the initial was a 1920 or so creamery, which has been readapted and actually taken care of quite well, but it does have some issues to the building. And as you can see in that one left picture in the middle, there's just not adequate space to get all your equipment in. So one of the worst things that can happen in Public Works is to park all your $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 vehicles outside in the elements and have them deteriorate. So part of the master plan is to try to provide what's considered fleet garage that appropriately addresses that.
Hey, what's the matter with the fire station? Is it gonna fall down?
Oh no, nothing's gonna fall down, sir.
What's the big deal about that?
It's operational space. It does.
You said you need a restoration or a bathroom for the women to go in?
No, it's not just bathroom, it's sleeping quarters. There's no proper sleeping quarters.
We're burning a motel now? Sleeping quarters.
In a full-time fire station, as you do have here, it provides sleeping facilities for men and women because the way the shifts are, they are at the station during their shifts. And in every fire station that we've been doing across the state that's a full-time career station, as yours is, there are spaces for both.
I think you should get somebody else in to look at that besides you guys.
Okay. Well, sir,
you guys want to do.
No. We're presenting our information. It's up to the city council to go from there. We're just going to present the study as we find it.
You're going to tell the high stuff. You don't tell what you couldn't get by without.
I think what we're going to do is we're going to limit our questions right now. We'll get through the presentation so individuals that maybe have time constraints, they can get out of here, and then we'll go with those. So we're going to wait on our questions till after the presentation.
Speak up so we can hear you.
Yes, sir.
You can turn and you can see.
Perfect. Another of the facilities that we looked at is City Arena. The City Arena on the outskirts of the city. It's used for a lot of events, a lot of hockey tournaments, a lot of other events. We're bringing a lot of people into this area. The City Arena's got some longevity issues to it right now. There are some more major items in the arena that things like the bleachers. The bleachers right now, and I believe it's rink number 1, they're falling to the point where their parts are finding hard to find nowadays, and there are accessibility issues as far as the spectators concerned as well. The bleachers in that case are in need of replacement in the very near future, as well as the dasher boards. The dasher boards in rink 1 are deteriorating and need to be replaced as well. There's some lighting upgrades that could be accomplished, and there's actually some limited space too as far as how the usefulness of the spaces are. The lobby space is very small. Concession space is not set up conducive to larger gatherings, and some of the hockey tournaments. It seems like that's very difficult space to use for that. Also, locker rooms and space for the referee locker rooms are very small and seem to be hard to accommodate.
Is that it for this? Yeah. So we also did, and it's not part of the information we showed here, but we looked at the aquatic center as well, and there's some minor things over there. There was a couple cracks, and there's a sagging lintel, but all in all, the aquatic, and it's a bathhouse to the aquatic center. It's in fairly good condition, so there really wasn't much to that. And as Dwayne said, I think all of these buildings have value. All these buildings are usable. It's just looking at long-term needs and really understanding what's there. As part of our process, then started to look at the options. So what you'll see up here is these were 2 options that were looked at for the fire station, the emergency operations center, and a potential future police department. So when we master planned it, part of our programming looked at the police department and the police department spaces and things like that, with the idea that not 5 years, not 10 years, maybe not even 20 years from now, but at some point in time, we wouldn't be doing full justice to the city if we didn't at least look at what happens if the police department isn't any longer in the county government center. What if they were to need their own separate space? So at least we looked and examined, could the site accommodate that in the future? So the diagrams you see up in front of you, the blue represents potentially a future police department. The red represents the fire station, a new fire station. It's based, again, when we did the programming, it was based upon the number of staff that would be there. And primarily the biggest thing when you're planning fire stations is the number of trucks that they'll have in that station. So that large kind of center in the section where the driveway is, I'll point to that. This is really where the trucks are. And the trucks would exit out that way on this scheme, and they would exit, I believe, out on this way in this scheme. So the 2 options that we looked at, one is on Main Street. Here's the railroad tracks, the McDonald's and whatnot is right over here. There's the inlet connection between the 2 lakes. So one of the options looks at this site and the potential development of this site. Again, one of the critical issues with the fire station, which was looked at some time ago, is the location of the fire station within the city. Response time is critical. Being able to get to properties, to people's homes and things like that in a designated period of time is critical for a fire station because of this, where am I at? Because of the proximity of these 2 locations in the core of the downtown, they're comparable to where the fire station is now, so it doesn't compromise response time. On this particular site, the vehicles would exit onto Main Street, and again, what we showed is the idea of preserving some park area on this side, the fire station. The other one was on Front Street, so the county government center kind of sits right here, and I forgot what that other crossroad is on the other side. Oh, Newton. So Newton is going north and south on this side. So when we looked at it, out of the 2 options that we studied, it appeared to us for a few reasons that what we're calling option A was the preferred option. The reason it was it primarily had to do with the reasons I think why option B wasn't as preferred. With the railroad tracks just on the north of Newton here, there was some concern that if there is railroad traffic, that could impede emergency response access heading north. The configuration of the site, as you see, the property that could be acquired here is actually a kind of an odd shape. So as you can see, where future buildings, while the fire station fits fairly neatly, if anything were to be expanded in the future, it is kind of a tight situation. We also did an analysis on the soil conditions on that site. And again, the soil conditions on this site would actually increase the cost versus a building here because of the more loose soils that required an increased foundation system. So these were the two options that we had for the fire and the police station. And emergency operations center, which is a discussion with the county as well right now. We also diagrammed in all of these too what the kind of existing operational space is and the new proposed operational space. Public Works. Public Works, as Dwayne had mentioned, the Public Works facility, I think the city's done a tremendous job at utilizing what they have, but there's a lack of space. So if anybody's ever driven over into that area and kind of gone around, was off Madison and Commercial Street and that general vicinity, this building here, this white block here, is the existing creamery. And so the city has modified that. What's not shown in this diagram is a little office piece that's on the end. And then there's some outbuildings. There's a salt shed. There's some cold storage buildings that are around there. But the city has utilized it fairly well. As I mentioned, some of the biggest problem is vehicle storage or vehicle parking. And this is an existing, what we would call fleet garage right here. What this option proposes is to utilize the existing building, turning that more into additional storage space as needed and giving adequate space, and adding a fleet storage building here. The other thing that Dwayne started to mention as well is proper ventilation for welding, adequate lifts for working on the equipment you have. That's really inadequate the way it is right now as well. And so this proposal shows the addition of shop space along here as well, and then a new office space that provides proper engineering, proper support office space, break room, things like that that are needed within the operations of this facility. So this one shows utilization of the building as well as expansion. So that was option A. Option B for Public Works was to take the property that the city owns to the west. So here's the railroad spur coming through here. There's kind of a wetland area through here. And to build, the problem is this piece right here is this piece right here. So it doesn't totally show it. You can see these buildings here. Operationally, this is a little disjunct to where if you were going to build over here, you have to provide the vehicles and the people. For operational efficiency, the vehicles, the people that work on them really need to be together. To split them up on two sides is operationally inefficient. So option B, we're showing a new fleet garage, new fleet maintenance areas, the shops and the storage and the various things, but still utilizing the existing buildings, but they primarily become cold storage. In these two options, the option again that was preferred was option A. We felt that there was adequate quality to the existing building and use of the existing buildings, that we could make those work with some minor repairs, some minor remediation, and then expand the needed space for Public Works. It also, in the initial cost analysis too, to build this amount of new building versus this amount of addition of new building is a less cost to the city. And this is felt that one of the things we looked at too is could it be phased over time to minimize the initial cost that would be spent on the project. This option allows us to phase portions of it, to build pieces of it and build out other pieces 2 years, 3 years down the line. So again, option A was a preferred option for the Public Works. This one looks at the arena, and as Dwayne said, the college uses it, and you've got the first sheet, the second sheet, you've got your main public parking. You come into the lobby here, you've got some of the kind of space that the college had used over here, the various storage space. I think there's some dog training on the second level. Again, it's not what we would consider by any means a not usable situation. Money can be put into it and made it workable. The two options we looked at, though, and this is part of the Blazing Star analysis as well, the two options we looked at is part of the discussion was, is this ice rink in the best place it could be? Is it providing the draw to the community? And both my boys played hockey, and I was down here on numerous times for hockey tournaments, so my kids actually played at these rinks. And actually, we probably took the bypass around coming down on the north side and then actually coming through the city when we came from Owatonna. But this looks at the two options, remodeling, expansion of the existing, or as part of the Blazing Star, and you'll see that as part of the next slide, part of the Blazing Star option is to say, okay, do we build the new ice rinks as part of that overall site development? Does it become part of a destination for the entire community? And then the retail and the other things that are planned for the Blazing Star, then that becomes a draw for those businesses as well. So in this option, in our opinion, this ultimately in the long run, and again, who knows what that time frame is going to be, but in the long run of the city and the growth, economically, it would appear to us that bringing the ice rinks down to the Blazing Star site would be a good option. City Center was the other piece that we looked at. The building's in good shape. I mean, the City Center is a very nice quality building. The city has taken care of it well and maintained it well and done some recent upgrades in the mechanical systems, the elevator, for accessibility in the various bathrooms. And so the building's actually in very good shape. When the fire station moves out, and oops, I keep doing that. Not good with these things. So if any of you are familiar with the building, this is the lower level off the lakeside entrance. This is the mid-level with the library. So right now this section here, this 2/3 of the building is taken up by the library. This portion here is taken up by the fire department. And then, am I on the upper level? Oh, I've got it switched up. I'm sorry, this is the upper level. So this section right now down in here is where the trucks are, and the trucks are exiting out here. So one of the things we looked at with this option and analysis was when the fire department moves out of this building, what happens to that space that the fire department is in? And what we were able to determine was one is the library is split up on 2 floors, which is inefficient as far as staff and control of books and things like that. So in this plan, one of the options is to remodel this floor so that it can accommodate all the library. It's to take the upper level and engineering and planning and whatnot that's currently down on the lower level and really bring them up to where the library is over here and really make the upper level city services. So it's one level, one-stop shopping for everybody in the city comes up to that level. And then what happens in this potential option is then the lower level is an opportunity for other tenants, potential lease tenants, other agencies that might want to come in that the city could lease it for. But again, this shows how you can potentially get the maximum utilization out of the building. The 2 options that we looked at, option A being the restacking of the building and the building staying where it is downtown currently, or option B is potentially again moving over to Blazing Star. Now again, this is kind of a long-term look out into the future plan, but in our opinion, where the city hall is, depending upon what happens with the city of Albert Lea, that might be a great opportunity for development along the lake. It overlooks the lake. It might be a great redevelopment opportunity. So that we're not saying in the plan that by any means the city should vacate the current city hall. What we're saying is in the long run, it might make sense to be part of a new campus over at Blazing Star, to have that as an out. So in option B, we're strictly saying if that became viable for this to be developed as a separate housing project, whatever, then there could be another place maybe the city goes. The other pieces we looked at, we mentioned this, is about the bathhouse. The bathhouse, the biggest thing that we looked at with the bathhouse, it's an operational issue. I'm sure you've all been to your public pool, and the pool's on this side. And when you come in and you have your tickets and whatnot to access the pool, women go to one side, men go to the other, and the staff that work that are somewhat isolated looking out on the parking lot here. The goal was to say, if you look at current bathhouse designs at any public pool you go to, there's actually a connection for the staff, so you get staff efficiency and potentially less staff to have somebody work here that can see the pool, can access the pool without kind of going around without actually seeing what's going on. So all we looked at this option was to say, could we make that work? Again, this wasn't, and we'll talk about the ranking a little bit more, but this wasn't seen as something that was critical, need to be done now, but it was saying, can we make it work? And we found out we could. Through some demolition and reworking, if new bathrooms were constructed, a new female bathroom, a new male bathroom that opened up this area, you could create that staff and connectivity. Dwayne, do you want to talk about the Edgewater Pavilion a little bit?
Edgewater Bay Pavilion was built originally as basically a seasonal event space, and not real well done. So there are some issues there with acoustics. And the other thing we were asked to look at was the ability to make it useful for all year-round use. So we looked at using it, enclosing it from the bathroom space to the main hall space, incorporating a heating and cooling system that would allow it to be used all year round. We looked at 3 different systems to do that. As well as insulating the roof. Right now the roof is not insulated, so we do some upgrades for that to make that usable. And adding some acoustic material to the inside of the roof underside, and as well as just at the upper part of the walls. We're trying to preserve some of the finishes that are in there as best we can as well. It's a nicely done facility, but in order to get it to be useful for all year use and as well as improving the acoustics, some of those finishes would need to be revisited. What we also did is we looked at beyond the interior of the building itself, which sits right here. We also looked at the potential for developing more of the space out in front by the lakefront here, which you could utilize it as more of another outdoor space as well for events, weddings, and so forth, as well as using the amenities within the inside of the building also. So we looked at using sort of an amphitheater type setting here with a promenade that could reach out to a gazebo structure out in the lake area. These are just options that we looked at to consider.
Thank you, Dwayne. And again, this wasn't saying that this was moving ahead. Part of the analysis that we're doing right now on this is what does the city currently get for renting this space? What do other cities get for year-round rent? And kind of comparing how the use has been and what that potential cost would be. So again, it's not saying that this is something that's urgent to move ahead, but at least understanding, what are those opportunities. I'm going to give you that back. So the Blazing Star was really a challenge. This consisted of multiple meetings with a variety of individuals. The city administrator, Chad Adams, had reached out to a variety of members in the community. We had senior resources, we had the Mayo, we had the school district, YMCA, thank you, all come together in a variety of meetings and say, okay, what could this center provide and how could it help what you do and the various individuals you deal with. So this was a culmination of multiple meetings and input as far as what seemed to be the best. The Mayo tying some clinical space into it. Same thing with senior resources. So what we did is we went through a whole programming exercises where we talked about the various spaces. I mean, it's one thing to have what I would consider a recreation center with the gym and the yoga and all these various things that a recreational center provides. But the discussion was it's really more than a recreational center. It's truly a community or more of a center that serves multiple purposes. And so we programmed that, and that was a very small part of the puzzle. If you look at these, and these are kind of small because this is roughly about 60 acres. The road here, if you take what's north of the road, it's about 30 acres. If you take about what's south of the road, it's about 30 acres. So one of our landscape architects, our master planner, we sat down and we looked at utilization of this property. How do you maximize utilization of it? How do you make this piece of property a destination for the city? Well, the way we see this project and this property, it's not just a general development. This is really somewhat of an economic stimulus to the community as well. But this is, to me, this is exciting because we see such opportunity in this. But I'll kind of talk you through it a little bit to help you understand it. Currently, the road, the aquatic center that's on option A right over here, the aquatic center, it's on the other side here. The road comes across and it kind of hugs the shoreline a little bit of the lake, and then it goes up as it heads north. One of the things that we started looking at was how do you create maximum usability? You see a lot of communities that have lakeshore property, not just residential, but retail and restaurants and all these things that bring people to that area. So what we decided to do in the master plan was to take that road that comes out here, and even though it continues here, really was to have it, as it comes across the bridge, have it turn north. Here's the railroad tracks that come across there that do split the property. Have it go north and have it hug until it comes across to where the railroad tracks are, and then it ties back into the existing roadway. The purpose for that is so that roughly this 30 acres or so that are down here that are right off the Blazing Star Trail that kind of comes through and connects through with some of that area, now we can connect all that together. The other portion that we looked at on the other side, or the north side, on this side, was a multitude of options and arrangements. What we are showing here, like in this option item 2 is what we're calling Blazing Star. So here's the ice rink. Here's what we're calling is the Blazing Star Center, which is what we talked about with the Y and Mayo and Senior Resources and School District, is that element right there. We show the idea of hotels. Instead of hotels being out on 35 on the edge of town, trying to bring some of those hotels back into the core. And again, creating this synergy, this energy of activity and development that really creates a lot of potential viability for this core. The other option that we looked at spaced things out a little differently. So this, just to give you an idea, this kind of zigzag arm-looking creature hanging out here, this is the size of like the Kalahari. So up in the Dells in Wisconsin, that's what this kind of represents, whether it's a housing development, whether it's water park, it's the size like of the Kalahari. So it's a fairly good size building. These are, the interesting thing is when you think about a 60-acre site, it's hard to get your head around the size of these buildings. So these are actually some fairly large buildings. The community center we've talked about alone is about 120 to 140,000 square foot building. So when you think about that little box being potentially a footprint of 60 to 80,000 on one level, there's some good sized property there. The benefit we saw of option B versus option A was the ability to create more opportunity, more activity along the waterfront. So if you just had one large development or two large developments on the lake, and you created a dock and some areas of activity along there, that has one use. But if you have multiple restaurants, multiple businesses that tie the trail in, that kind of create almost more of a village effect to that shoreline, we felt that that was a certain benefit from this plan of option A versus option B. The other thing we liked about option B in the kind of analysis that we did with the group was there's a certain zoning occurs. So if you got this kind of village effect down by the lake, and then we're showing here is again the community center, Blazing Star Center, potentially a future arena, and then this U shape that occurs right off by the main corner, that is potentially retail here, strip mall type facilities. It's potentially hotels along there, some footprints of hotels, and that could be developed as well. And then what that creates here is what we're considering this civic plaza. So the civic plaza, that's fairly a good sized mall across here, could be used for farmers markets. It could be used for art fairs. Again, it becomes a destination that draws people to this core. So out of the two analysis, I think we felt that this option B was the preferred option. Matt, you want to talk at the airport some? Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you, Bruce. As Bruce mentioned at the beginning, my name is Matt Wagner. I'm actually with Mead & Hunt. We've teamed with BKV on this project from the start. And a little background on myself, I'm an engineer, and I also have a planning background. We've been assisting the City of Albert Lea with your airport over about the last 12 years as your airport consultant. So we've worked on numerous airport improvement projects out there to improve the safety and utility of your airport. With this master plan facility project, we looked at the facilities at the airport, namely the arrival departure building and the flight school building. The arrival departure building is this white rectangular shape here. It's adjoining a hangar. And then the flight school is located just off the page here, up adjacent to this hangar. The arrival departure building was built in 1972. That building has reached about the end of its useful life. The areas for passengers to come in and sit in when they get in with a flight or before they leave is not quite big enough for the types of flights that come into your airport. Also, the facility is, over the years, needs increasing more and more maintenance to maintain that facility. With the flight school as well, that facility was built in the mid-1940s, and that facility also does not meet code requirements. It's kind of a long, narrow building and doesn't really serve the function as well as it should. So the first thing we did is looking at those two facilities as we looked at renovating those. Is there something we can do to put money into it to utilize the existing structures that are there? Due to the age of the buildings and the fact that they're not code compliant, we decided, looking at it, that the cost to renovate those spaces would just be too much. That actually the construction of a new facility would be about the same, and you'd get a facility that's built for the current needs and future needs as well. So we looked at several options with the Airport Commission and the City of Albert Lea, and this option that we're showing here, option 7A, is the preferred alternative. You can see the building here. The airfield is actually down towards the bottom of the slide here, so it provides a good view of the airport apron and the airfield, and then it also provides a view of the parking lot. So people coming in to catch a flight have direct access through the building to the apron. It also connects one of the existing maintenance hangars to a potential future hangar on this side as well. So you'd have thoroughfare through those buildings from building to building. By combining the two spaces together, you save, you have one restroom facility. You consolidate those areas together. You can see in the blue, we've got the new passenger waiting area. These are office areas for the fixed base operator that operates his business there at the airport. We show a large conference room, so when you've got people coming in for business meetings or flights, they have a place to meet right there at the airport. Also for Airport Commission meetings or other city meetings, this facility could be utilized for that. The purple down in the bottom would be a flight school. That's that other building I was talking about earlier. Consolidating that use here, they'd be able to have their flight simulator, training rooms, and all of those functions served. There's also an area for vending where someone could come in and have a meal before their flight. There's pilot areas here for pilots to do their flight planning. When people come into the community for meetings and whatnot, pilots have a chance to utilize the pilot lounge to rest before the flight going out. And then we're also showing a shower facility and restrooms that are ADA compliant, and then also storage and janitorial closets. So this preferred layout meets all of the current and future needs that we could see for the airport. It's well organized and efficient. And then furthermore, through state and federal grant monies, the City of Albert Lea can leverage its local funds by utilizing those grant monies. We did an eligibility study with the FAA and MnDOT through this process, and about 15 to 20 cents on the dollar would be the City of Albert Lea's responsibility. The FAA and MnDOT would make up the remaining 80 to 85 cents on the dollar. So with this project, it really leverages the city's funds. With that, I'll turn it back over to Bruce.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. So the last slide that we're going to look at before we kind of open things up for public comments really had to be at the end when we started to do and discuss with everybody what needs to be done first, what's more important, what's critical. And the way we analyzed that was basically existing condition, operational space requirements, operational efficiency, economic stimulus, and basically services enhanced to the citizens of the community. Those were kind of the main ranking criteria for what we felt helped us to evaluate which one should be done in what kind of order. We felt like based on condition and operational space, Public Works needs to be done first. Again, the equipment's being stored outside. There's not the proper operational space needed in Public Works, and it can be phased over time. So it's a fairly low economic impact, and it can be moved forward to make sure that the space can be accommodated over time. The fire department, as we mentioned, the operational space and the safety of the firefighters and things like that, based on current National Fire Station design standards, again, we felt the fire station was something that should be looked at and kind of moved ahead with. The Blazing Star Center, as I mentioned earlier, is going to be something that's going to take time to cultivate. It's going to take really more of what we would consider a private-public partnership. It's going to be getting together with the school district and the YMCA and the senior resources and potential developers and look at how this can occur over time. This is definitely not a quick item, but it's going to progress over time. It would be unfortunate in my mind to leave that piece of property undeveloped and just kind of sat there for a long period of time. So we think that that's important, but it needs to have focus and vision, and it's going to take time for this to develop. And then, as Matt mentioned, the airport, for the city not to take advantage, when you think about what the airport brings to a community, the various businesses that utilize that, the various individuals that utilize that, and the amenity to that provides to the city as well, based on what it's costing the city, we felt personally like the airport was almost a no-brainer. That made sense. It'll help the business that the airport generates. So I think with that, on another thing I want to point out real quick too is we do have comment cards in the library. We have brought some pens and some comment cards. So even when we're done tonight, if any of you have some thoughts, some concerns, some comments, please jot them down and drop them in the box we provided out there. We want the input. We want to know what you're all thinking. And then I think the city might be providing some kind of link as well. So, thank you, Mayor.
Well, I think that anytime you take on a venture like this, you're all probably sitting there going, holy cow. There's a lot here. And I think that it's important for all of us to look at this as an opportunity. This is an opportunity for our community to look at the facilities that we have and how do we move forward. I don't want anybody to walk away from here scared tonight that the city of El Raleigh is going to move ahead with every single one of these projects today. But I think it gives us a framework from which to work from so that we know the concerns of the different facilities that we have and looking at the options. What might be the best for us as a community? It'll stir a lot of conversation, and I hope that all of you that have been here tonight will go out there and look at it as an opportunity for us as a community to do what's best for us in the future. And there's a lot of money associated with this, and that's what scares us all. But then we have to be realistic in understanding that the facilities that we have, we need, and we need to move forward with that. And so understanding what there is there and what the concerns are there and how we address those in the future is really important to all of us. And so I want you to look at this as an opportunity tonight. I appreciate you coming.